This is Sean. Welcome back to the American Soccer Coach. This video is going to be about why I mainly dislike it when young American players sign with big teams abroad in Europe. Now, the reason this is, and when I say this, I'm not talking about like Christian Pulisic, who went to Chelsea, because Christian Pulisic was already an established player playing for Dortmund of the U.S. men's national team. I'm talking about specifically players 16 with an EU passport, or maybe up to 18 or 19 without the EU passport, that go to teams that are like the top teams in the world. And now the reason I say this, and it's not always the case, right? Because there might be a club, for example, like Chelsea, which now have a transfer ban, or Real Madrid, or even Manchester United, who have historically, the last, say, 5 to 10 years, not really developed many players for the first team that they are going to give a chance to, right? There are other clubs that are very good clubs, for example, Ajax, PSV, Porto, Sporting Lisbon, Benfica, that have historically been Champions League clubs and been very successful domestically, that have also given young players a chance. And so, what I'm saying is, I would prefer American players, for the most part, to go to teams where maybe the standard, like for example, at PSV or Sporting Lisbon, might not be at the level of like a Manchester United or a Real Madrid or any of these teams, but they have historically developed much better. They have historically developed more youth players that are capable of breaking through to the first team. And then from there, once they are getting minutes with the first team, they get starts with the first team, and eventually they sell them on for millions of dollars. I would much rather prefer American players take this route than, go to Real Madrid, which one could be a marketing ploy by Real Madrid, right? Because they know that there's a huge American there's a bunch of Real Madrid supporters all across the United States, right? So it's a marketing ploy, could be. And on top of that, I mean, say you're a number 8 and you want to go to Real Madrid, and your competition, even if you're a very good player at 18 years old, your competition is Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Casemiro, Isco, James Rodriguez, Valverde, is is going to be practically impossible to get in the team. So even if it is something that I'm sure a lot of kids dream of, playing at the Bernabeu and kind of living that, the chance of actually breaking through in a situation like that would be extremely rare. Like maybe a year or two ago, there was an American that went to Manchester United. He's an outside back. And again, the idea of having an American at Manchester United playing at Old Trafford in front of 70, 80,000 fans is fantastic. The idea of that is great. But the reality of that actually happening would be extremely, extremely rare. And unfortunately for the player, it did not work out. Now, what we have seen recently, which I like, is American players have been going to maybe less. Again, they're not going to the top tier. I mean, I would make the argument that Ajax is that after making the Champions League semifinal. But, like clubs like Ajax, PSV, Porto, clubs like this, where now we're seeing American young players go there. And I like this because historically these clubs have actually given their players a chance if they're good enough. And eventually, they could be sold on if they are able to make their breakthrough. So basically what this video is about is, I'd much rather see American players look for those type of opportunities. And again, it depends on the player, it depends on the agent, it depends on the style of play, it depends on the manager and if they're willing to play young players. So it really depends on a lot of things. But if we're just generalizing, I think that is something that we need to look at more. And I guess the other thing too is, just because a player plays at Manchester United, or on the contrary, maybe he plays for a smaller team, but the smaller team is a club that has historically produced first team talent and has historically had many good youth players. A lot of players would just assume that the guy at Manchester United would be better than that player, when it actually might not be the case, because they are looking at the other players saying, we can make this guy a first team player in a year or two, right? So that could be the difference as well. So that's mainly what I wanted to talk about in this video. I think that that's something that people don't look at enough, just because obviously you hear about like a young American at Real Madrid at 18 years old. It would sound amazing, right? But the reality of that kid actually making the breakthrough would be way more difficult than it would be at a lesser established club. So let's look a little bit less at the club, and let's look at the performances of the player and what they're actually projecting to be 2 to 3 years from now. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the video. Appreciate it.